So here we have a little checklist for the things that we need to install Passport Business Solutions version 12.02 on a SQL Server. First, we have to have an installed SQL Server, and we're going to install that as a named instance of SQL Server, and I'll show you why in just a few minutes. We're going to obtain the install files that you'll need and an RWLIC file from Passport Software. We'll create an install directory and copy those files there, and then we'll run those two files, and those two files are wininstall.exe and PBS12 for SQL.exe. Basically, those are just self-executing zip files with all the programs we need to do the installation. Then we're going to execute a SQL script that creates a database and the stored procedures that are needed for Passport Business Solutions to talk to SQL Server. Once we do that, we can copy the exported files from our previous version of PBS and then run the pbsinstall.bat. I'm just going to switch over to my desktop now so we can continue doing that install. Alright, so here's my desktop, and first thing we're going to do is take a look at Microsoft SQL Server, which I just installed on this machine. So right here we have Microsoft SQL Server 2008 R2, and the tool we're going to use is the SQL Server Management Studio. This is your interface into the databases to do administration, backups, that kind of thing. On my checklist earlier, I pointed out that we're going to use a named instance, and here's why. Just simply to be able to identify the instance of SQL Server easier. Now here, the first part of this name, PBS train, that's the name of the machine that I'm working on, and then SQL Express is the name of the instance that's installed. If I bring down this box and go to Browse for More and go to Network Servers, we'll see if we can retrieve a list of SQL Server databases that we have installed in our network, and you can see there's a whole bunch of them. And if you don't have them set up as a named instance, it might not be real easy to identify the SQL Server instance. Now, if this is the only SQL Server in your network, this might not be as big of a problem, but for here, we have a lot of different test platforms and such going on, so we always like to use a named instance. Just makes it easier to identify later. Now this value we're going to need later in the installation. We're going to have to put that into the configuration when we do the installation. I'm just going to go ahead and connect to the database. I can see that this little green arrow indicates the database server is running. And since I just installed this, we're not going to have many databases in here. There are some system databases that Microsoft installs, as well as some of the databases that are created to support SQL Server Reporting Studio. Okay, so now we've verified that we have a named instance of SQL Server on the box. So we're going to go out and make sure we have the files that we need from Passport Software and create an install directory and copy those files there so we can get started with running some of the scripts for the installation. I've grabbed the files I need and copied them onto a thumb drive so I could have them available to me on this machine. So the three files that we need to do the installation are wininstall 1202, PBS install for SQL 1202, and an RWLIC file. RWLIC file will have to be obtained new from Passport Software with 1202. It has some additional information in it that's going to be needed for the installation of the SQL Server version of Passport Business Solutions. So I'm going to take these three files and copy them. And then on my drive, I'm going to create a directory that I want to do the installation in. We'll call it PBS 1202. And go ahead and paste those files. So let's give it a few minutes to extract the files. Now these two files are self-extracting zip files, and we extract those in this order. We do the wininstall first. This installation, if you didn't want to do a SQL Server install, you could use to install in our traditional Vision file system. So I'm just going to extract that. And then right on top of that, I'm going to extract the install for SQL. So that adds some additional components that are used for the SQL Server installation. So now we've managed to complete the next three tasks here to get all the files and extract them so we can get ready for the install. Now we're going to go and run a SQL Server script that's going to create our database and the stored procedures that we need to run Passport Business Solutions. Here I'm ready to run the first script to create the database in Microsoft SQL Server. If you go into the directory that we just extracted the install packages from, you will find two files that are named ms_install, and we're looking for the file that is a Microsoft SQL Server query file. The first file is a command script that you can use to generate this file again, but we've already set that up for you so it will create the PBS master database in SQL Server. So I'm going to double click on this file and it'll open up SQL Server Management Studio. It's showing me the script that we're going to be running, and we can see that we're in this instance that we had talked about before, the PBS train / SQL Server Express. And I'm going to go ahead, and if I just put my cursor in the query window here, these buttons up here light up so I can control what's going to happen with the query. So I'm going to execute this query, and you can see at the bottom the query executed successfully. In order to see what we've done, which is create a database, I'm going to have to collapse this and hit the F5 key so it'll refresh. And now we should see a new database, PBS Master. It's not going to have a whole lot in it quite yet. It's got a couple of tables in there from AccuCorp that allows us to do locking of the tables in the database. And we're also going to find some stored procedures that have been added, and you can see they also have the Accu name. That's the COBOL compiler that we use, comes from AccuCorp, called AccuCOBOL. So these are the stored procedures they use to interface with SQL Server. So we've created our initial database, and we are ready to go and start installing Passport Business Solutions. So we've created the database, and now we're ready to go and grab data from our previous version of Passport Business Solutions and run the actual install script. Here's my top-level directory that we created a few minutes ago, and now I need to go get some export files from a previous version of Passport Business Solutions so that they can be processed during the installation process. So I'm going to go back over to that thumb drive we're working on, and I have a installation of Passport Business Solutions 12.01 in that area, and I'm going to select all of the export files that I created using the extended file utilities. Select those, copy them, and then go back over to my top-level directory and paste those. So now we have a bunch of export files that we can use during the installation. So I'm going to go find the install batch file and double click on that. I'm sorry, I went kind of fast there. PBS install is the batch file that starts the install process. I'm going to select option 2, which is to do a SQL Server installation. The very first thing that is going to be looking for is the SQL Server named instance. So you might recall when we installed, or when the very first step, we went and made sure that we had an instance of SQL Server running in this environment. And here is the name of that SQL Server instance, PBS-train / SQL Express. I'm going to disconnect from that real quick and go to reconnect to give you a little shortcut. This is the same value that we just looked at, and I'm just going to hit Control-C on my keyboard and copy that value to the clipboard, and then I can right-click on this field and paste it, and now we have the right value to set up the connection strings for PBS Solutions. So when I hit OK, it's going to write that value out to several configuration files, and now a new program shows up that is the multi-company file maintenance program. We've added a little new feature to this, a number of new features. It's a brand new program. For every company that you have defined in Passport, there's going to be a record in here. The export files that I just copied over into the area included an export of the multi-company file, which I can restore using this program. So I'm going to go ahead and restore it. It asks me if I want to set defaults for the database and server names. I'm going to say yes. So here's the server name, and here's the database name I want to use, PBS data. So that's that same string that we just put in there. And then this is what the databases are going to be called. So when I hit OK, you're going to see we just picked up company 00. It's going to be located on this server, and it's going to have a database name of PBS data 00. And it's now asking me if I want to create that database. So I'm going to say yes. And now you can see this little green button here says database is active. So now I know that the database has been created in the database and it's active. I'm also going to add a record here. I have data for company 99 as well, and it wasn't in my multi-company file. I did that on purpose so I could show you how to edit this and add a new record. So I just said new, and I'm going to say 99, and I'm going to name it demo 99. It is not a consolidation company, so I'm going to leave that blank. And it's going to be on the same SQL server. If you wanted to, you could put different companies on different SQL servers or different instances if you had a requirement to do so. And then I'm going to go down to the database name field, and you'll see that when I went down to this field, it added the 99 to the end of the database name. So the database for company 00 is PBS data 00, and the database name for company 99 is going to be PBS data 99. So I'm going to save that. And because it didn't get processed through this restore EXP, it hasn't created the database for me yet, but I can do that from this little button right here or by using the F7 key. So I'm going to click on that button, and you will now see database is active up here, and also, again, the green flag database is active down here. So I'm going to go down to SQL Server Management Studio and open up the databases, and now you will see we have 3 databases through the install: PBS Master, PBS Data 99, and PBS Data 00. So we've created the databases that we're going to need to finish our installation. When I exit the maintenance program for the multi-company file, we are going to go into the rest of the installation. And at this point, it's identified that there is an RWLIC file in my top-level directory because we copied it there earlier. And I'm just going to hit continue with installation. And now it's just unzipping all the files and setting up all of the paths for the programs and the data that you need for your installation. This takes a couple of minutes. And as soon as it's done, we should have a copy of Passport Business Solutions with data files ready to have data imported into it using the Easy Convert program. Okay, installation complete. So I'm going to exit from here. And I'm going to go back down into SQL Server Management Studio again and go ahead and take a look at company 00 and the tables. And now you'll notice we have all sorts of tables here for all the data that's going to be required for company 00. I can come out of here. If I go to the top level directory again and find the batch file to start PBS, I'm going to say OK. And the first time you run PBS on a machine, it's going to do a Windows registry update. So I just click OK to that. And the next time I come in, I haven't set up any users yet, so it tells me no users have been defined. And now it's asking me for the companies, and we can see company 00 and 99. If I select 00 and use ADM, which is the user you can use before users are set up, you will see that we have an installation of Passport Business Solutions. And we haven't imported any data yet, so this all looks like initialization stuff, see initialization procedure. But we now have installed Passport Business Solutions. We have now finished our installation. We've copied all those exported files from the previous version to the top level, and we ran the PBS12.bat so that we've got a working piece of software, and we're ready to convert data from a previous version of Passport Business Solutions using the Easy Convert program. We're going to cover that in another video that should be produced and out in the next couple of days. I thank you for spending some time with me today and look forward to sharing some tips and tricks and training with you in the near future.